Ah, and now here comes Ritu. All right. Hello, Ritu. Welcome. All right, we are on page 660 of the Gospel in the chapter called With Various Devotees. And I will find out here in a moment what chapter number that is. Oh my goodness, we've really almost finished with it, I think. Oh, chapter 33. And we are looking at what date here? We are on November 9th, 1884 was the last date we passed. And they've been at a celebration here. And let's see where we should start. I'm going to go back a little bit. We'll go up about, oh, I don't know, up where toward the toward about a fourth of the way down the page when one develops love of God, just because I'm interested in that. So we'll start there instead of in the middle, in the farther down in the middle of the conversation. And Ramakrishna is talking. He says, when one develops love of God, one likes to talk only of God. If you love a person, you love to talk and hear about him. A worldly person's mouth waters while he talks about his son. If someone praises his son, he will at once say to the boy, "Go and get some water for your uncle to wash his feet." Those who love pigeons are highly pleased if you praise pigeons before them. But if you speak ill of pigeons, they will at once exclaim, "Has anyone in your line of 14 generations ever raised pigeons?" Sri Ramakrishna now addressed Mahimatsaran, who was a householder. And so see, this is the thing. It's like if we love God, that we can know that we've developed that love because that's what we enjoy talking about. That's what we enjoy thinking about, and it's great fun. I'm always trying to get God off the shelf and off the shrine, and into life everywhere, filling everything. So that just raises the quality of being and makes us aware of ourself in all of those different situations. And so this is that idea, to talk with God as if you're in relationship with him, in any of those five different relationships that we can have with the divine, and to grow in that and to indulge in enjoyment around God, to allow the divine impetus within you to become the joy of all that you do and to be able to in that presence find joy even in the things that you didn't really enjoy doing. um you know maybe start a conversation with the beloved telling how much you don't like doing what you're doing. And that'll always turn out well for you. Anytime you think of God, there's a lift to the mind, there's a lift to the heart. And the farther that we go down this path, the more intense that is, and the more reliable that is. And it can take some time. It can take a long time. I feel like I was telling somebody at the retreat this weekend, that really I don't feel like I tasted what what I hadn't really tasted uh, the fruit of practice, I think, for 20 years. For those first 20 years. I mean, it's not like there was nothing there. I probably wouldn't have been able to keep going for 20 years if there was just nothing there of any beauty. So there's plenty of beauty there, but a real sustaining uh, understanding of the presence that didn't come for about 2 decades in the monastery for me. And I think it's probably not that way for everybody, just because I started at a negative number. I started about a mile and a half before the start line. So I think that's why it took me that long. But this love and this enjoyment of the love of God is a very real and a very reliable experience. And it can carry you through life, and it can be the antidote to the things in life that normally can disturb the mind, because the love of God is a beautiful buffer that embraces you. And all you have to do is in the middle of your depressing thought, just remember that God is present here and for a second just run downstairs, say hello and come back up to your troubles later. And God is there unmistakably, unquestionably. All right. And so, and not to make it sound oovy groovy and magical, because it's not. It's reality. It's a testable, experienceable process that can take you there. And so, because this presence of God, if we use that synonym for God, that love, uh, that you have this enjoyment of love. And you've come to realize that the source of love is not objects and others. The source of love is your own heart. And when you go in there in a regular, exercised way to settle your identity there, that's when you become aware that you've had that. It's like it's not that it's not there, and it's not that it has to be developed there. It's just that you have to grow in your awareness of it, and you sit with it. And once you touch it, like he's saying here, you can't believe anybody couldn't enjoy it. Somebody doesn't want to talk about pigeons. You say, well, God, has anybody in your family ever raised pigeons? Well, I mean, there's no way you could not love pigeons unless you just had no experience of pigeons, right? That's what that little story there means. It's like in your life, with this love of God, with this religion, or with this spiritual life, if you haven't enjoyed it, somebody's like, well, gosh, are you practicing? Have you done anything? How can you not have this as your central enjoyment? How's that possible? Right? Because once you've touched that, once you've set yourself to practice and to go forward like that and discovered it within yourself, it's unimaginable to have life without it. It's like there's no going back after that. There's no return after that. And so this is what Ramakrishna is pointing at here. So he's talking to Mahimatra now, and he says, well, what is the need of renouncing the world altogether? It is enough if you can rid yourself of attachment, but you must have sadhana. You have to fight the sense organs, right? So you have to have the practice so that you can shut the sense organs down, ultimately, because they rob us. I know. This is always a very sensitive topic. You can't go very deep in a public group about this stuff, but controlling the sense organs, if you don't control them, your indulgence in them, you will know if you are able to discipline yourself, and for a period of time. We don't get into all that, but if you're able to control yourself for a period of time, you will find that your meditation is deeper and more enjoyable. You'll find that your ability to sense the presence is much easier, that the mind actually calms down a bit from that. And then you find when that, if you aren't that way and you had been that way, you will find that your mind drops, your awareness drops, after that experience for about 3 or 4 days, where it's kind of a slog again to get into your meditation, to get into your prayer, to get into your practice. And so this isn't just a suggestion, and it has nothing to do with the value of sex life and all of that. It's not a thing that says it's evil in and of itself. It's not. It's just not helpful if you haven't found the love of God to turn to those things before you turn to this. All right. And so give yourself a period in life. If you can't renounce it for the rest of your life, don't worry. You don't have to do that. Just renounce it for the moment and say, hey, I'm going to do an experiment and I'm going to see what the effect is in my life. If I do my practice regularly for the next 10 days, and I'm very careful about what I put into my mind over the next 10 days, right? And I'm very careful about my actions. Just for 10 days, do an experiment and find out, is this true or not? And find out, is it worthwhile or not? But remember that what you're going to get in 10 days is going to be nothing in comparison to what you're going to have in 10 years, right? And that it's nothing that in comparison to what you're going to understand in 20 years. And this is why perseverance, forbearance is so necessary in spiritual life. This isn't this, we're not doing a bubblegum machine here where you put in a quarter and get your bubble gum, right? We're talking about life here. We're talking about simple. My mother just put the idea of a sculpture in my mind. That sculpting takes a long time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of patience and a lot of failures. right? But when you've got it going on, then sculpting is hilarious fun because you've gotten the skills and you've gotten the awareness and you go. And it's the same with spiritual life. It's like learning how to sculpt. You pay attention at at the beginning, you're not making big, beautiful, amazing sculptures and whatnot, but you're doing little things a little bit at a time and your skills grow. I wish Greg was here because, I'm going to talk about him. Because even in the 2 years that I was working with him in his studio, I saw an amazing advancement in his ability, in his art, an amazing advancement in his comfort with himself and his art. And when he goes out and puts his proposals together and such. And I only was there for 2 years, but he was working for over 20 years on his art before he was able to make a living on it. You know, for 20 years he put that effort in to get to that point. And now he can live off of that, and so as an example, that's spiritual life is like that, but on a whole other level because the art doesn't last. You finished a project, you just pick up the next project. But on in spiritual life, there is a presence within you, an awareness of the divine within you that grows and does not diminish. Does not diminish. Well, when you get to a certain place, if you don't get to that place and you turn your eyes away and start going into the senses, then you'll become quickly unaware of it again. But once you get to a place here where he's talking, where you actually touch love of God, you actually have developed some love for God. He's saying that that drives itself because you're like, wow, this is, I love love. I love this experience of being. And that just keeps increasing, you know, and it really comes to rescue you at just the right time in life when your senses start dulling and your age is advancing and your beauty is diminishing and your length of life is shortening and you start not having the energy to go out and get lost in that nonsense out there. Just about that time, if you've been doing your practice over the years, is when it comes in and it carries you through the most difficult part of life. At least I think the most difficult part of life. Well, maybe the 20s, the 15 teenagers and 20s are very difficult too. But certainly old age is a real adjustment. And spiritual life is the perfect companion, the perfect help in this time of life. I can honestly say that just now, just as I'm beginning to see myself melt into the ground as a body, I'm having the best time of my life. That this has been more fun than all of my gallivanting and all of my well, actually, there isn't even a comparison because that was not even fun beyond the moment that I was doing it, right? But this joy is a lasting and beautiful joy. And I know that a lot of you could talk about that, could share that note and have that notion. But here the master is saying, you don't have to renounce the world altogether. Now, why does he say that? It's not that it's important not to renounce the world, but he's saying that, your mind can't swallow a pill that big, right? You can't say, oh, I'm going to renounce this for the rest of my life, or I'm going to renounce the whole world all at once. It's an egoistic attachment, to talk like that or to think like that. That's kind of the mighty man way of doing something, but there's no success in that, right? There's no success in that. That will go for a while and you'll fall, and you'll go for a while and you'll fall, and pretty soon you'll abandon the effort. So what do we do? You pay attention to this moment. In this moment, control yourself, control your sense organs. In this moment, think of God. And that's all that's necessary. You just constantly in the moment. Just right now, let me think of God. And if you can just do that, over and over, that might become the whole world altogether at some point. Who knows? But not to think that way, not to worry about that way. Don't say, oh my God, I have to renounce all this for the rest of my life just so that I can love God. Oh, I can't ever do that. Because how can you? You don't even know the love of God when you start, when we begin this effort. He says it is a great advantage to fight from inside a fort. You get much help from a fort. The world is the place for enjoyment. After enjoying different things, you should give them up one by one. Once I had a desire to put on a gold chain around my waist. I obtained one at last and put it on, but I had to take it off immediately. Once I ate some onion, and while eating it, I discriminated. Oh, mind, this is an onion. And then I moved it to different places in my mouth, and at last I spit it out. Those are a little bit different desires, probably, than many of us. But nonetheless, you see how what he's saying here is when you fulfill a desire, just don't blindly fulfill it, wait, getting to get the result of it. He said, make a process of it, make a study of it. Indulge yourself in that enjoyment and watch every moment of it with the presence of God in your awareness, right? And see how it really feels in your sober state. When you get caught up in the frenzy of trying to find that desire or chase after that desire, you're not sober at that point. You're not able to see things as they are because you're being very goal oriented at that point, right? When you're in the midst of a swinging party, you don't want to sit down and do math, right? So you do your math beforehand. And so when you sit down, when you go out to enjoy these things, and this is every time you go out for an enjoyment, stay conscious, stay aware of what's going on, right? Because that will teach you what really fulfills you. That will teach you what is really helpful to you. And you'll understand that teaching of take refuge only in me, only in the heart, only in the self, right? Don't take refuge in the distractions, right? But sometimes the pain of our life, because we haven't nurtured the shrine, we haven't sat in the presence within, the pain in our life builds and we start living in a distracted state. Not that we go out to be distracted, we actually live distracted. We're always just trying to stay busy, trying to keep our plans going, make sure our schedule's full, make sure we don't have any time where we have time to sit down and feel the pain of what our life has done to us, of where our way of life has made us, right? And so it might even take some time to get rid of that need for distraction because you have to undo a lot of the damage that you've done inside, and that damage can only be undone by the acceptance of grace, both from your own mind in forgiving yourself and nurturing yourself, and then, as importantly, if not more importantly, that grace of the divine. Right? And so this is what he's telling us here. A musician was expected. He was to sing with his party. Sri Ramakrishna asked the devotees every now and then, "Hey, where's the musician?" Mahima, "We are quite all right as we are." Master, "No, sir, you get this all through the year." A devotee outside the room said, "The musician has come." Sri Ramakrishna was filled with joy and said, "Ah, has he?" Mats were spread on the floor of the long veranda northeast of the master's room. Sri Ramakrishna said, "Sprinkle a little Ganges water on those mats. Many worldly people have sat on them." The ladies of the Parari Babu's family from Bali had come to visit the temples. They wanted to listen to the kirtan. A devotee said to Sri Ramakrishna, "These ladies have been inquiring whether there would be any place in the room for them. Can they have seats?" The kirtan had already begun. The master said, "No, no, where is there any room here?" Narayan arrived and saluted Sri Ramakrishna. The latter said tenderly, "Why have you come? Your people at home have beaten you so much." Right. Wow. Yeah, some of these young men that used to come see Ramakrishna, their parents wanted them to be good mathematicians and good lawyers and whatnot, and were terribly disturbed that they were coming regularly to see Ramakrishna and were getting they were attaining this love of God and they didn't want to do anything else. They didn't want to talk about anything else. And so literally a few of them suffered beatings. Their parents would beat them if they went to see him or if they snuck out to see him. Your people at home have beaten you so much. He signed to Baburam to give Narayan something to eat. Narayan entered the master's room. Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna followed him. He wanted to feed Narayan with his own hands. Afterward, he returned to the veranda. Many devotees were present, including Vijay, Mahimatran, Narayan, M., and the younger Gopal. Soon, Narayan came back to the veranda and took his seat by the master. I love that. I love that image that comes into mind there with Ramakrishna following behind Narayan, wanting to feed him with his own hands. Because what my mind does when I read that is it abstracts it and puts me in there. And I think that there's a way, a time, you look at the relationship that Narayan had with Ramakrishna, and you live that way by nature. If we're in accordance with our own nature, we begin to live like that. And your relationship with God becomes like this, that you're not always the one seeking God. Sometimes God's trying to entice you, right? Give you, trying to feed you with his own hand. And this is that acceptance of grace. This happens when the ego has really begun to thin away. That this kind of relationship, this kind of sensitivity toward God can become reality for you, right? And so it's not going to always be you trying to find God, right? That's one of the biggest points of that I happened on Easter in the lecture on Easter Sunday. That really the story of the Christ, the story of Jesus, is the demonstration of God willing to go all the way to find you, right? That he's the story of the Christ, the summary of that story, one of the summaries of that story, is that there is nothing that I'm not willing to do to establish you in love, right? Like that God's effort and love for you. And Ramakrishna also says that. He says, for every step you take toward God, he runs 16 steps toward you, right? And those are not the numbers are purely for example. Right. And so just to understand that, and as you get going in spiritual life, you become aware you can have a sensation of that God taking those steps toward you because you'll suddenly remember the name of God and you'll just say it, and then suddenly you get a woof, the presence really opens up for you when you've come to a certain level of selflessness. Many devotees were present, including Vijay, Mahimachuran, Narayan, M, and the younger Gopal. Soon Narayan came back to the veranda and took his seat by the master. About 3 o'clock, Adar arrived. At the sight of him, Sri Ramakrishna appeared excited. Hmm. The devotee saluted the master and sat on the floor. Sri Ramakrishna beckoned to him to come nearer. So you can see that God can be excited to see you, right? When you sit down for your practice, that you're not the only one excited if you are excited, but you can know that God, the personal God, has that love of you, that anticipation of that time with you. When the music was over, the gathering of devotees broke up. Some began to stroll in the garden, and some went to the temples to watch the evening service. In the evening, arrangements were made for the kirtan inside the master's room. Sri Ramakrishna eagerly asked a devotee to have an extra lamp. The two lamps lit the room brightly. Sri Ramakrishna said to Vijay, "Why are you sitting there? Come nearer to me." This time the kirtan created an intense atmosphere. Once again, you see, if my mind's in this mood now, every time I see him doing something to a devotee, I picture the divine, doing that to right now, to us in this way, that you sit down in the temple, right? You sit in the fourth row back and you can just imagine God in your mind, in your own way. And it doesn't matter in the beginning whether it's real or not. Assign a section of your mind to God, right? And eventually God will inhabit that space for you. That imagined conversation becomes reality, right? And it's not reality in the way that in the sense that you develop a more formulated imaginary friend. I'm not talking like that. I'm saying that you will have a real experience because that section of your mind that you give to the divine voice, right? Eventually God fills it. You can learn from that, you know. You can learn a lesson from that in time. And so this is all these little things here, So when you sit down in the back row and you start your meditation, and out of nowhere you just have a thought of God saying, "Hey, why are you sitting there? Come nearer to me." Right? So you get up and move to the fourth row back in response to it. Come nearer to me. And just to have that, just to understand that that's the desire of God in general. God is always saying that to us. Come nearer to me. Sit here. Sit a little bit closer each time. This time, this kirtan created an intense atmosphere. The master danced in an ecstasy of joy. The devotees also danced, encircling him. And while Vijay was dancing, his cloth dropped. He was unconscious, just completely so much lost in the thought and presence of the divine and enraptured in his love that he was in an ecstatic state. He didn't realize that, he was naked. That is the power of God intoxication. I mean, to forget you have a body, to forget you have a body, that's intense. That's not just a mood, that's a beautiful, beautiful uh, place to be. And the mind has to be so pure, not to be distracted from the thought of God, from the presence for that point. And this is why we practice. We don't forget, right? That this is the reality. And that ecstasy of Vijay here, that is reality. It's not that it's we see him as being absent from here. Oh my God, he's dancing naked and he doesn't know it. And oh my God, and we're all about here and now like that. He, on the other hand, is with the divine, just just lost in that embrace of God. The experience that's beyond the body, the experience that doesn't need the body, an experience of the soul, as it were, on that divine level, that higher consciousness, that reality that we're walking in, but are unaware of it because our vibration is down in the lower chakras. We're still worrying about, eating, sleeping, and whatnot like that. When the music was over, Vijay began to look for his key, which had fallen somewhere. Well, obviously, if everything else had fallen somewhere. The master said to him with a laugh, "Why bother about it anymore, right? Why worry about keys and monies and transportations and things like this now? Like, return to that divine ecstasy. That is everywhere, every time. All that is the thing, right? The rest of this, let it take care of itself." Right? He meant that Vijay should have nothing more to do with boxes and keys, right? No more with the keys are always for, security in a locked door. For a devotee, security could never come from a locked door, right? Boxes means little collections of private things that you hide away for yourself, right? The devotee has nothing like that anymore. His life is everyone, for everyone, right? He's available, just loving, giving, caring. So he says, he meant that Vijay should have nothing more to do with boxes and keys. Kishori saluted Sri Ramakrishna and was about to take his leave. The master blessed him, touching his chest tenderly, and bade him goodbye. His words were full of love. M and Gopal saluted the master. They too were about to take their leave. He said to them in the same affection, "Couldn't you go tomorrow morning? You may catch cold at night." Right? And this is what the voice will say to you as you meditate and the end of the hour comes. Even if you have nothing else more to do, it'll say, "Do you have to go now?" Right? We were just getting started. We were just getting warmed up. M and Gopal decided to spend the night with Sri Ramakrishna. Right? See, so they gave in. Marvelous. They sat on the floor with a few other devotees. Sri Ramakrishna had no rest the whole day. The devotees had been with him all the time. He went out for a few minutes. Returning to the room, he saw M taking down a song from Ramlal. "Master, what are you doing?" M said that he was writing down a song. On being told what the song was, the master remarked that it was a rather long song. M wrote a line or two and then stopped writing. A little later, Sri Ramakrishna took his supper of farina pudding and one or two luchis. A lighted lamp stood on the stand by his side. M sat near him. The master asked if there were any sweets in the room. M had brought some sandesh, which he had put on the shelf. Sri Ramakrishna asked M to give him a sweet. M searched for the sweets but could not find them. He was embarrassed. They had been given to the devotees. After finishing his supper, Sri Ramakrishna sat on the small couch and M seated himself on the foot rug. The master was talking about Narayan, was overcome with emotion. This is probably one of those reasons that you always offer the food first, right? So that when the beloved asks for it, you've still got one for him because you you didn't go and give it all away to everybody else first, right? So we always offer things to the Lord first, in all of our functions, actually, and all of our meals. That's what grace is about, offering things to the beloved first, to put the mind there first. Why? Because God is somehow, emotionally needy and needs to be served first? Absolutely not, right? It's because God is the enjoyment of all things, right? You offer it to Him, and then it can be satisfying, right? We offer our life to love, and then life is satisfying. If you forget to offer it to love, then life can't be satisfying because it is love itself that is the point of life, right? And so this is why we are careful to always put the thought of the beloved, the awareness of God, always comes first, because that is the thing that makes all things meaningful, that makes all things fall into their proper place for us. And so always, everything that we ever are involved in, the divine should always be the first for us, not as a rule. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying when I push against that? It's like we're not talking about rules and regulations here. We're talking about relationship, right? We're talking about love. And so this is the way that love is nurtured. This is the way that love grows. This is the way that we advance. This is the point, because we're falling in love, right? It's like I saw on the YouTube videos, sometimes they're ridiculous, but the other day some man was walking with his girlfriend and some other woman dropped something and he picked it up and handed it to her. And he turned to his girlfriend. His girlfriend was all upset. What? What are you doing? Serving another person, like that. Of course, that's insecurity on her part, but you see the story is it's like always take care of your love first, right? He should have uh, paid attention to his girlfriend and say, "Hey, sweetie, I'm going to pick that thing up. She just dropped it, or would you like to pick it up?" Right? So that she doesn't misunderstand, or that there's not room for your mind to wander away from the relationship. And so with God, this is kind of the same thing. Not that God's a jealous girlfriend; he would never be that way. But in our own self, we think that way, and encourage ourselves to always remember, God is my love. Right? God is my love. I never want there to be an occasion where something else seems to be loved more by me than my beloved, right? In that way. After finishing supper, Sri Ramakrishna sat on the small couch, and M seated himself on the foot rug. The master, talking about Narayan, was overcome with emotion. I saw Narayan today. Yes, sir, his eyes were moist. This is M. When I looked at his face, I felt like weeping. Right? So that love of God was blo apparent in Naren's face. There's a famous Swami, probably many of you know him, Swami Aseshananda, who used to be up in Portland. If you look at that man's face, you see this intensity of love for God. He was a disciple of the Divine Mother, a direct disciple. He took initiation from the Divine Mother. You could have a great meditation just thinking about that for a moment. And he was a free soul, which means, he didn't, there were no rules for him. He wandered in this world, and when you see a picture of him, his hair is just like a firecracker explosion. It's never combed, it's never fixed, it's just wild. And he has a wild look in his eyes too, a wild look of love in his eyes. It's amazing. I saw a video of him lecturing, and it's funny, but it's not, if you stop at the funny, you miss the point. There's something beyond the funny, because what happens is he's talking and he gets tangled he throws his hand up or something at one point, it catches his chutter and it goes over his head, and he's still lecturing and he gets all tangled up. He gets all tangled up in his chutter, just and he's literally like this, just tied up in his shawl, unable to get his face out, and finally gets his face out, and he never stops the talk. He never stops his line of thought, you know. And it's again, it's that complete things don't matter. You know, things don't matter. These things, how my hair looks, you know, how good or I look, or whether I'm old or I'm young, or whether I'm caught in my cheddar or not. It's like it doesn't matter, right? This guy is wild in his love for God, lost. He's just there. And to be around those kinds of people, which is the advantage of going to holy places, you know, seeking out holy people, is to be in that company and see what that is, to get a taste of what that looks like and how it is to be around these people. You know, my whole life was from the darshan of a holy person. You know, everything was changed in one visit with a holy person. You know, it began everything. And so these are very important things for us to do, to you know, be together, to have holy company together, to seek out holy places when we go on vacation or when we travel. You know, that's why even in the West we call them holidays. Well, holidays means holy days, right? There was a time when we also went on vacation to go to pilgrimage places, to meet holy people, to have the darshan of holy seekers. You know, this is what was considered enjoyment in those times because people then had that calm mind. They had that awareness of the divine, right? And so that was what they chose to do when they took their time off from work, was to go and to deepen that and to sit in that and to be in that. And so we also have that opportunity. You know, M says, when I looked at his face, it was, you know, I saw the devotion so clearly that it made me start weeping. The master, the sight of him arouses a mother's love in me, as it were. His relatives beat him at home because he comes here. There is no one to defend him. M. The other day he left his books at Haripada's house and fled to you. Master, it was not good for him to do that. Sri Ramakrishna was silent. After a few minutes, he continued, Master, you see, he has much substance in him, right? What is substance? Substance, when he says substance, he means like integrity, right? An integrity inside. That like if he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. If he tries to control himself, he controls himself, right? There's a substance, there's a strength in him. And that strength comes from practice. You know, you grow muscles by lifting weights, right? And you do them as much as you can. When you can't go any farther, you know, like if you're trying to build bulk, you know, you're lifting weights, you're supposed to pick a weight that you can't lift more than 6 times, right? And as soon as you're able to lift at 7, you put more weight on, right? And so this is how we run our practice with God. You know, at the first, you can only sit for 2 minutes, right? You can't sit still more than 2 minutes. So you sit still that 2 minutes. And when you've mastered that 2 minutes, you add another one, right? And you do it for three. And you go forward little by little that you're strengthening your inner self. You're gaining character. That's what austerity does, right? That's what austerity does. It builds your character. It gives you strength because you've put yourself through these paces. You've made a practice of it. You've made a study of it, and you've put it under your control. And you go forward, right? And you grow in grace, and you grow in presence, and you grow in integrity. Your word, your yes becomes yes, and your no becomes no. That's what it is to have substance. You're not flaky, you're not flighty. You say you do something, you do it. And you don't just do it to get it done, you do it with your investment of love and focus as an offering, because that's how you live your life. Right? So you become very reliable to the people around you on the worldly plane, you know, for something that we might notice. Somebody becomes reliable. Somebody becomes somebody you can depend on, that you don't have to. You know that when they say they're going to show up, they're going to get there. If they say they're going to bring the they're going to bring a cake to the party, they bring a cake to the party, right? For these kinds of ideas. And so we want this kind of substance in us, right? We want to be disciplined and we want to be people of character. Why? Because that's how we steady the mind, and that's how we hold the bliss of God within ourselves, right? If a mind that's distracted, a mind that's easily distracted is like a bucket with holes in it. Any bliss that you pour into is just going to pour out through the distractions, pour out through the holes. And so we want to have a bucket with no holes, right? We want to block up sense organs. Say, no, I'm not going there. That's not been satisfying. It's like throwing gas on a fire. It's a lie to think that I would enjoy it and fulfill it and be finished with it. That's the lie. You can't. If you fulfill it, you're going to immediately want more, right? You see, he has much substance in him. Otherwise, how could I be attracted to him, even though I was listening to the kirtan at the time, right? So that's self-explanatory there. You attract the mind of God when you're a person of substance, when he knows that you really do love him, that you're serious about it, that you're going forward. Then he feels that. You walk into the room and he's like, wait, oh, there's Naren. Right? And then he runs after you and tries to feed you. I had to leave the music and go into the room. That never happened before. Again, Sri Ramakrishna fell silent. A few moments later, he began to talk. Master, in an ecstatic state, I asked him how he was feeling. He just said he was happy. To M, feed him now and then, as parents do their child. Sri Ramakrishna then spoke about Tej Chandra. Master to M, please ask him what he thinks of me. Does he think of me as a Gyani? Or what does he say about me? I understand that he is very reticent. To Gopal, ask Tej Chandra to come here Saturdays and Tuesdays. To M, suppose I go to your school and look for. M thought that Sri Ramakrishna wanted to go to his school to see Narayan. He said to the master, you might as well wait here at our house, or wait at our house. Master, no, I have something else in mind. I should like to see whether there are other worthwhile boys in the school, right? Are there other boys with this open heart, with this love of the divine? M, of course you can go. Other visitors come to the school. You can come too. Sri Ramakrishna was smoking. M and Gopal finished their supper. They decided to sleep in the Nahabat. M again sat on the floor near Sri Ramakrishna. Master to M, there may be some pots and pans in the Nahabat. Why not sleep here in this room? M, very well, sir. It was 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the small couch, resting against a pillow. M sat on the floor. The master was conversing with him. A lamp burnt on the stand near the wall. The master felt great compassion for his devotees. Boy, if that's not obvious, just a great compassion for his devotees. He wanted to bless M by accepting his personal service. Master, my feet ache. Please rub them gently. Right? And so this is that relationship, that love, that the master real this is something that was hard for me to understand as a Westerner, that it's an opportunity for you to serve, these holy people because you're serving God by doing that, and it's a help to your own strength within you. And so here Ramakrishna wanted to bless M, and so the way he blesses him is by allowing him to rub his feet to give him a foot massage. M seated himself on the small couch and took the master's feet on his lap. He stroked them. Now and then Sri Ramakrishna would ask his disciple a question. The master smiling, how did you like today's conversation? M, oh, very much indeed. Master smiling, how I spoke with the Emperor Akbar. M, it was very good. Master, please repeat it to me. M, oh, a fakir came to visit Akbar. The emperor was saying his prayers. In his prayers, he was asking God to give him wealth and riches. Thereupon the fakir, which is kind of a wandering holy man or a wise man, who had come to see the king, to obviously ask the king for something, but he goes in and finds the king begging God for money and wealth, so he was thinking, and so he says, so the fakir was about to leave the room quietly. Later, when the emperor asked him about it, the fakir said, well, if I must beg, why should I beg of a beggar? Right? If I have to beg, why should I beg of a beggar? If you have to beg God for your wealth and your riches, why don't I just go to God for it? Why am I coming here to you for it? Right? So he had a realization there. Master, what else did we talk about? M. Oh, you told us a great deal about saving up for the future. The master is smiling. What did I say? M. As long as a man feels that he must try, he should make an effort. How well you told us about it at Sinti, right? Master, what did I say? M. Well, God takes upon himself complete responsibility for one who totally depends on him. It is like a guardian taking charge of a minor. You also told us that at a feast, a child cannot by himself find a place to eat his meal. Someone finds a place for him. Master, no, that's not quite to the point. I said that the child doesn't fall if the father leads him and holds his hand. M. You also described the three classes of sadhus. That's practitioners, someone, spiritual seeker. The best sadhu does not move about to get his food. He lives in one place and gets his food there. You told us about that young sadhu who said when he saw the breasts of a young girl, why has she those abscesses? You told us many other things. So if you don't remember, don't remember that story, there was a young monk who was raised in a monastery and had never seen a woman. And he went out begging for the first time, and he came to a house and knocked on the door, and a young woman answers the door, and he sees her breasts, under her clothes, obviously. And he's confused. He's like, "Oh my, what are those abscesses?" He thought something was wrong with her. He'd never seen a woman before. He's like, "Oh," and the mother then overhears and comes and says, "No, those are breasts. That is how the child is nourished." And the young monk is amazed, and he thinks to himself, "Why am I here begging for food if God has given takes care of the child who can do nothing? If he's provided for the child by giving this ability to the mother to directly feed the child, he says, why am I running around here begging? I should go directly to God if he has that kind of commitment to us." Right? So he saw that, and M is just repeating it here. Right. And this idea, this is an important point right above here, where he says, that if you feel, as long as a man feels that he must try, if you have the impetus to do it yourself inside, he says you should make an effort. That's the time to make that effort. In time as that faith grows, he says, that the father will help the child take find his place at the table, or that God takes care of our needs, that a child doesn't fall if the father leads him and holds his hand. So if you have this awareness of the presence of God and you depend on it, not in a and you trust it. You don't feel the emphasis to do it yourself. You don't feel like I know I have to do that. If I don't do that, I won't eat. I won't be able to eat. Right? If you have that feeling, then yes, you're right. You have to do it. But in time, your faith will grow to where that impetus will stop, and you'll turn to God. You'll know that, oh, everything is fine. You know that things will be as they should be, right? And when that is the impetus, that's the time to obey that impetus and let God then take charge. The Holy Mother says that as we grow in our spiritual lives, God begins freeing up our schedule and freeing up our responsibilities so that we can have that time to think about Him, that time to sit with Him. When I look at life, the pattern of life, even still in the United States here, it's like as you grow older, your schedule gets freed up. There's retirement and then Social Security. And then in your old age, as you're pulling that car into the garage, as it were, you have time. You have the time to sit and think about God. And you get a choice, right, in that time. Am I going to think about God? Of course, you balance it all as a householder, but you always make sure that you don't spend all of that time with your with your grandkids and taking, retirement cruises and going to the in your 55 and up community, spend all your time at the clubhouse, right? It's like be careful as we grow older, because that's a lot of times the temptation. If that's the way we've filled our free time when we were young, if we didn't change our habit with that, then when you get old, you're just going to fill your free time with distraction and enjoyment as well. And so he's saying, but if you have this relationship with the divine, you'll know when you free that time up, you get to spend time with your beloved. And at that point, it's very meaningful, because you're knocking on his door, as it were. And it's a good time. It's better to do it when you're young because it's very hard to overcome habits after 50 or 60 years, I can tell you. You know, it's like if you've had a habit for 60 years and then you're old, you're like, oh, when I'm old and have that free time, then I'll meditate. No, you won't. If you haven't developed that habit in yourself, that's a pipe dream, right? What you want to do in the future, do it now. Don't put anything off to tomorrow because tomorrow doesn't exist. And so you're throwing it into a bin with no bottom, right? If you intend to do it, do it. Do it now. This is the moment. Your karma is broken and created in this moment, right? So don't placate yourself by thinking, well, I'll have more time next month or I'll do it on Sundays or something. No, here and now. If you've got the moment, place the mind on the beloved, right? And that will bring you to joy. That will bring you to light. What else did I tell you? M. About the crow of Pampa Lake. He repeated the name of Rama day and night. That is why he couldn't drink the water, though he went to its edge. And about the holy man in whose book was written only Om Rama. And what Hanuman said to Rama. Master, what did he say? M. Hanuman said to Rama, I saw Sita in Ceylon, but it was only her body. Her mind and her soul were lying at your feet. And about the Chatak bird, he will not drink anything but rainwater. And about Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Master, well, what did I say about them? M. As long as one is conscious of the jar, the ego will certainly remain. As long as one is conscious of I, one cannot get rid of the idea, I am the devotee and you are God. Master, no, no, it's not quite like that. The jar doesn't disappear whether one is conscious of it or not. One cannot get rid of the I. You may reason 1,000 times and still it will not go. All right, so this is an important teaching because a lot of times, because of there is a class of people, who are sadhus and who, wander off into the mountains at a young age and sit in a cave and devotees bring them their food and they never stop meditating and they never stop thinking of God. They can efface the ego, right? But Ramakrishna says that is highly that is not at all common. I mean, that's a very rare individual that can completely efface the ego and experience samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi. And so for devotees, for those of us, people people like me, are just kind of cranking along, trying the best we can. For us, we diminish our ego as much as we can, right? But we don't fixate on trying to get rid of the ego. We just try and thin it down enough, and we think of God, and we hold just enough ego to be separate from God so that we can enjoy presence, right? So our ego almost begins to serve our relationship with God by providing the space for us to be able to worship, for us to be able to share love, and for us to experience that sweetness of the name of God. And so we don't have to go and break down our ego completely in that sense. And that's a great comfort because it's a great discouragement to think of these amazing things that can be accomplished. But he says, don't worry about that. Just go forward and try and think of yourself as little as possible and serve others as much as possible. And as that increases, right, you'll fall in love with me. And you can be an ego and still be in love with me, just like all of these people in the room, Naren, who he's chasing to give him food, and Vijay, who he wants to come and sit a little bit nearer to him. They were egos. They were still in ego space. And yet God's love was available to them. And that became the point of their life. And those two guys that were going to go ahead and leave, and he says, "Oh, can't you just stay the night?" Right? They stayed the night. They grew a little bit in that moment. They took a step farther toward the beloved at that moment. Right? And so this is how it goes. We use our ego then to spend time with the beloved, to sing, to be inspired by the presence of God, to enjoy the love of God, to be wowed by the grace of God, right? All of those require a sense of separation, a sense of I. And so Ramakrishna is saying it's okay to have that sense of ego, that sense of separation, right? But don't use it to build to build the sense of separation, use it to sit in the presence of God, to enjoy God, and to make your life about the enjoyment of God, right? Because that is the only thing that you can enjoy in the soul, in your depth of self. All of the other kinds of enjoyment take you into a little frenetic, you know, flighty energy up here, people at a party saying nothing about nothing and laughing. That's not where we're going. For us, we live deeper. We do things that are meaningful. We think things are meaningful. We are serious about our life. We have a sobriety about living in light, living in love. We're not just out looking for a good time, right? And this is a big switch for many. For many, it was certainly a huge switch for me. And the first few years of that switch can be a bucking bronco, but we do it and we go forward. M remained silent for a moment. You had that talk with, oh, it's 5:30. Okay, we're going to leave M silent for a moment and we'll pick up right there tomorrow. So we turn off the recorder.